Hi, everybody, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. I'm Rex. I'm your host, and I'm so glad to have you with me today. I've got a fabulous guest. You're going to love it. We're going to talk money and wealth and things that will be very useful for you to be able to think about and utilize to move yourself forward in ways that add to you and your family and your friends. So, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest. Fred Moskowitz is not only a friend of mine who I really, really enjoy as a friend, but he's also an educator and best-selling author who's trained countless investors from all walks of life on how to create cash flow and passive income streams of their own. Now, as a fund manager, Fred is a leader in the alternative investment arena and is recognized for his expertise in identifying and analyzing investment opportunities in building income and producing assets. So in addition to his work in the financial industry, Fred regularly speaks at conferences and events to share his insights and expertise. And he's highly regarded for his knowledge, experience, and track record of success. And so without any further delay, let me bring up Mr. Fred Moskowitz. Hi, Fred. How are you?
Hello, Rex. It's great to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you here, and I love you as a friend, and I admire your work in the field of investments and money and wealth creation. And so I'm eager to talk with you about, how do you create like passive income streams or create cash flow and do some of the things that we just mentioned while I was introducing you.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, there's so many different strategies out there that people learn about and hear about. And some of them can be very sophisticated and complex, but also some of them are very easy. And it gets down to the point where you've heard that maxim that simple things are easy to do, and they're also easy not to do. And so I always encourage people take some action, take some small steps to get started. Whether you have a lot of money or you're aspiring to do so and you're on your way, wherever you are in life, right? There's always different ways to get started, and whether that's investing in yourself and your education, right? That's a great place to start. Investing in your network and building relationships, and also investing your money, right? When you're maybe out in the working world, earning your paycheck. And so do you have a system set up to dedicate a piece of that towards your investments, towards your future, right? The same way your employer is going to dedicate a percentage of your paycheck to go right to the IRS to pay your taxes, right? What about you and me? Well, we can also do the same thing. Let's carve off a piece and set that aside for our future. And with today's wonderful technology, all the resources we have, we can automate that. And so it becomes second nature. I mean, this is really great. And we can get more into that, but I always encourage people to get started, learn these skills. They're not skills you were taught in school. You have to pursue it on your own. And it's a great place to start. It's education, no matter what.
Well, I love that, because what you demonstrate is that wealth is more than just money. It's investment in yourself and your talents and abilities. It's in your network and other people and the resources and relationships that you carry. And then there's automating systems that can perpetuate things for you. So that said, in the old days, people would make some money and they would stick it in the bank and it would come back with some interest, and they could, in many cases, if you had enough money in the first place, you could live off the interest in your bank account.
Yeah. Not
true today.
No.
I mean, if you have $1 million in the bank and you get $10 in interest over the year, you're doing good. And I'm being a little facetious, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So how does somebody take something, especially if they don't have a lot? They're working paycheck to paycheck. They don't have any money, or they're in credit card debt. I mean, and there's different ways to come into money. Some people inherit it. Some people, accidentally
Mhm.
something. They find it. Sadly, they steal it, or they earn it. They're working for they're trading their time for dollars. So in that case, what can someone do to do what you just said? In other words, take a portion of that money and automate it. How would
Yeah.
if I make $60 a week, and I'm just picking a number,
Mhm.
and I have to pay for my rent, and I have to pay for my food, and I pay for my gas, and I have to pay for whatever else. How do I carve out that small money? Where do I put it? What do I look for where that money could show a return someday, that and not 50 years from now? Because it's one thing if you're 20 and you say, well, when you're 65,
Yeah.
you're going to have $1 million. Another thing if you're 70 and you're out of
Right.
cash. If they tell you, well, when you're 125, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, is what's your time horizon. And with any investments, it's very important to consider what's your timing and your risk tolerance. And that changes depending on what season of life you're in, right? If you are in your 20s, just getting out in the world, you're going to have a higher risk tolerance and a very long time horizon. And so that's something that um, should guide you in the decisions you make and where you put your focus and attention. Um, but I always say get started. One of the best ways is for anyone that's working at a traditional job, traditional employment, you probably are already getting paid through direct deposit, right? Very standard. The old fashioned paper paychecks, not too common anymore these days. So this direct deposit, it goes to your account. Well, what would it be like if you carved off a piece? And I don't care if it's $10 a week. If that's all you can do, just start with that. Have your direct, go to your human resources, have them set up a separate direct deposit into a separate savings account, and just start that automated, whatever amount it is, $10 a week, $50 a week, doesn't matter, whatever you can afford. But it's builds that habit, builds that momentum. And then over time, you can make adjustments, right? And let that build up, and start by setting up a emergency account to have for unexpected emergencies. Let that build up. I mean, that's something that I think everyone should have, because we always have the unexpected surprises in life, right?
Right. Well, and I agree. And there's the envelope system or the jar system, where
Yeah,
people, you
yeah, it's the same idea.
um, but at the same time, so let's say I took $5 every week, because I mean there are apps that will take out your money.
Yep.
In the old days, you took it out and you stuffed it in your mattress, and if inflation weren't driving everything, you could pull out your mattress a few years later and you had money, that was maybe a little less valuable than it was, but you saved it. You weren't getting interest on it. In other words, so if I took $5 out of my paycheck every week, or $10 out of my paycheck, don't I need to put it into something that generates more wealth? I mean, an interest in a savings account might not do that. Now, people talk about CDs, or are there areas? And again, and we should say that this is informational advice. We're not making any recommendations or anything like that. This is
Educational.
This is educational. But I mean,
Yeah.
are there certain things that people should look into, do their homework to make sure that they're doing it properly, and they're not getting screwed wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share some strategies that I like.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of using Roth IRAs. Now there's certain rules about being able to qualify for them, and you have to have earned income, and there's limits on how much income you have. But for the majority of people, if you're working and you have income, you should be able to set up a Roth IRA and contribute to that. And this is a tremendous growth vehicle because the contributions you make, it's after tax money. You've paid tax on it, whether it was from employment or some other means. However, the growth and the compounding in that account can be tax-free. And this can be really, really powerful. And what do you invest that in? Well, that's a whole separate conversation, but it can be anything that you want within reason, right? If you want to put that into stock markets, maybe some kind of a mutual fund, those are all available. Maybe you're a big crypto fan. Well, there are ways to invest that into crypto if that's your speed, right? Each thing is different. There's different risks. So you want to get comfortable with what it is you're investing in. But I think for most people, a basic stock market mutual fund could be a great option, especially if you're starting out and you're putting in small amounts. Well, it's going to be fairly easy and little resistance to do that. And it's also liquid. If you need to pull that money out, let's say it's your emergency fund, you need that cash quickly, you can quickly sell those. And so that can be a great option. And over time, as you build more wealth and resources, certainly start to look at other options, right? I love alternative assets, investing in real estate, investing, owning property, investing in mortgage notes. I mean, there's so many different things. You can invest in a business. You could fund a business with that money. But again, since we're talking about just where do you start when you're starting out, there's some great options. Maybe you like treasury bills, which they're backed by the U.S. government. So if you feel that the longevity of the U.S. government is solid, then that's something you can invest in that has a lot of security behind it. So a lot of different options, but most people, Rex, are familiar with some of the stock market mutual funds. If you participate in a 401k plan at your employer, those are the options they give you. And so people are comfortable with that. They know about that. And I'm not saying you'd go out there and be a day trader. Certainly not. Right. But hey, if you're putting $50 a month into an S&P 500 mutual fund from one of the major brokerage houses, that's going to be a pretty great place to start.
Let me ask you this, because this is all really valuable and it's a good way to grow wealth, and it's reasonable, like you mentioned. Depending on your degree of risk, there's always, if you're high risk, you can do certain things. If you're moderate risk or low risk, you want to do other things. But what if you are starting out and you really don't have anything and you need money yesterday? I mean, other than putting all your money down in a blackjack game or something like that, what can young people do or old people do who find themselves in that situation? What can they do to try and increase their wealth while minimizing their risk? Because obviously you don't want to lose the little you have to try and which is what so many people often do. Is there an approach to that?
Yeah, there can be several great approaches. So one of them is to work more, right? Work more hours, take on a second job. However, this can also mean your second job might be working in a business that you're starting on the side, right? And can you do that? Think about this. How do you spend your leisure time every day, right? Do you come home from work and sit in front of the TV for 4 hours every night? Well, what if you instead took those hours per day and put them into something else, whether it's working second job, maybe doing some kind of seasonal work, or starting a business, right? Starting a small business. There's a lot of ways. I think that I mentioned taxes earlier, Rex.
Right.
So the U.S. government encourages two specific activities that people can do. And the reason why I say they encourage it is because it's encouraged through the tax code, giving a lot of write-offs and tax deductions. And those two activities are owning and operating rental real estate. And the second one is starting a small business. And so if you can do that, if you start a small business, it's something that anyone can do. You can bootstrap it. You don't need to have a lot of upfront money. And it can be very simple. It can be, think of it this way. If you have a hobby that you love, well, is there a way that you could turn it into a business, into a small business, and start to monetize it, right? If you are into fly fishing, well, could you maybe start organizing and promoting fly fishing expeditions where you gather a group of people together and take them out and create an experience for them and grow a business, right? Or maybe you're passionate about a particular topic. Can you start a blog about it or start a podcast about it? There's all these different ways that can be, I feel like it can be a much more productive use of your time, and turn it into business, operate it as a business. And that's something that can generate additional income for you.
I love it. I love it. And you're so right. I'm going to give you an example of one thing that you said that I have experience with, and that is my friend and occasional co-host Danny Walsh generated $3 million selling fishing tackle.
Fishing tackle
online. He became a two comma club member selling fishing tackle, and he worked hard to do it, but he generated wealth selling fishing tackles. He loves to fish. Yeah. And whenever I can't reach Danny, it's because he's off fishing somewhere. So, but
and he's probably built up a big following around that, right?
Indeed, I'm sure. Yeah. But question I have about starting the business, so they encourage, you said the tax code, there's some encouragement with the business, either investing in real estate or generating a business. Now, if you have a hobby and you turn that into a business, your business has to show a profit at some point, or the IRS considers it a hobby, right? And then you don't get the tax advantage. How do you, when you're trying to start out, do you make the money you need to make in order to get the tax advantages? Yeah.
No, absolutely. A couple things. First of all, you and I are not here to give out tax advice, right?
Not at all.
We are not accountants or CPAs. However, one of the first conversations you have when you're going about this is find an accountant, find a CPA that you can build a relationship with, and more specifically, find one that focuses on small businesses. So in your own community, you just ask the local businesses that you patronize, right? Your coffee shop or the place you go out to have lunch at in your town. Ask them, hey, can you recommend a good accountant? And ask for some referrals, and go see the accountants. Go sit down with them, tell them what you're planning to do, and ask for help. And they're going to provide you guidance. They're going to provide you tax planning and advice tailored to your specific situation. And what you'll find is that's going to be one of the most important um, members of your team that you're building. But that's absolutely the place to start. And to find them, ask other business owners who they use and recommend.
That's great. And also there's like small business resources and chambers of commerce and different business organizations that offer advice that can steer you towards or have a selection of,
Can I share some specifics with that?
Please.
That's a great point, Rex. Yeah, there's a lot of resources available. There is the Better Business Bureau, which is nationwide. They have offices nationwide. Also, the Small Business Administration, they sponsor a organization called SCORE, and you can find that at score.org. SCORE stands for the Society of Corporate Executives and Professionals. They're all made up of retired business owners and executives that are volunteering and giving their time back to help new business owners get started. And so if you go to score.org, you'll find your local office. You can attend their seminars that they have, whether they're online or in person. They can assign you a mentor to help you work with you one-on-one. And there's no cost, which is important when you're getting started because you may not have any revenue yet or a budget yet for that. And so they will be a big help, whether you need to set up your books and accounting or write a business plan, whatever it is, or seek funding from banks and lenders. They will help you with that. And what I like is they usually try to match you up with someone that has expertise related to the field you're in, which is nice.
Yeah. No, it is a great resource, and it's something that, if people aren't aware of it and don't know of it, they should check into it, because it's just the idea of having a mentor or somebody who can kind of hold your hand or give you the, feedback that you require. Because, there's so much, you can say, well, I'll do it myself. I'll get online. But, I kind of like Google search and I look at 2 or 3 articles and then I go, okay, I'm done. There's just too much, There's a point where you get, because so many of the first 10 or 20 pages are essentially the same, or they're ads disguised as articles and everything, that doing your own homework now is pretty tough. You want to be able to cut through all the garbage that's out there. And you've got somebody in SCORE and some of these resources that have done that. They've been there, they've done that. They can guide you, and help you implement the things that you need to put into.
Exactly.
That's really great advice, Fred. I would ask this, given that some people are young and need money, some people are old and need money, some people, want to invest their money and build generational wealth or, legacy wealth or this, that, and the other. All of the different things is great. It's fine and well. But what about wrapping your head around it? There's a lot of money things that, people have around, or a lot of, I hate to use the word beliefs, but the idea, they have limitations around creating wealth or opportunity, or they go, well, that's good for them, but not for me, or I don't have the smarts enough to do that, or I could never do that. That just isn't like it. What say you about the mindset of wealth that's necessary for people to just even begin to move forward, in some small degree? And then we can talk about how they can move in larger steps. But what kind of mindset is important for people to adopt around money? Or what are some of the myths about money that people believe that could be corrected?
Yeah, this is a great topic. I love this. A lot of people, I speak with so many investors day to day, and I find that a lot of people have grown up with beliefs around money, or could be taboo thoughts and ideas because of the way they were raised in their homes, in their environment, and that conditions us and shapes us. And so we always hear there's so many cliches, right? Which I hate even saying them or talking about them. But here's a concept that that I think is really important. A lot of people may feel guilt or unworthiness around earning money and generating wealth. And I feel that creating wealth, it's not a zero sum game. When you make money, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was taken away from someone else. What if instead we embrace the notion that there are more than enough resources available for everyone on this planet? And it's a mindset of abundance, right? Like I see examples of this all the time. I'm in Philadelphia area, and a topic that comes up a lot is some of the older neighborhoods in the city where houses might be run down and not well. Investors could come in and buy properties that are dilapidated or not at their best, not at their best condition. So if someone were to come in, buy a house and renovate it and then reselling it later at a profit, is that a bad thing? Right? Some people may say, oh, that's horrible. It's gentrification. It's this and it's that. But what about if we look at what happens, right? What happens when someone buys an old house, whether the intent is for profit or not? Let's set that aside, right? What if you buy an old house, it's run down, in poor condition, and you start to invest money and resources and time into fixing that up, right? What are you doing? You're creating an impetus, a economic force, an economic engine at work. Why is that? Well, let's talk about, in this example, this theoretical example, what happens? Well, you have to hire a bunch of carpenters, plumbers, electricians to come in and start doing work and improvements and repairs. And you're paying them, and that's supporting their families and their businesses. Well, what about all the building materials that have to be purchased that were created in factories and other businesses, right? The plumbing supplier that sold the pipes, the electrical supplier that sold the wire, all of these things, all the materials. So you have this crew, this army of workers working in the house, painting and repairing. Well, what happens when it's at lunchtime, right? What are they going to do? They're going to go down to the local sandwich shop in town at the corner and eat lunch, right? More money gets put back into circulation there. And so you see this ripple effect of all of these different things that happens in this activity. So I'm going to just make this short. So at the end, right, the property's all fixed up and renovated, and it's increased in value. So now the municipality can come in and say, hey, the value went up. We're going to reassess, raise taxes. That goes to the schools, right? To the local schools. The property value came up. The desirability of the neighborhood came up. All of these things are positive. And so this is the ripple effect. And throughout all this process, wealth was created and put back into the economy, into the world, and create a lot of ripple effects. So that's just one example. no one had wealth taken away from them throughout this process at all.
You're contributing to a group of overall group of people
Yeah.
in different places. I think that's a beautiful example. So let me ask you this. I'll use my own self as an example. I grew up always wanting to be an entertainer, an actor in the movies. And all I knew from the old movies, was the studio system. So they put you under contract, they paid you a bunch of money, and if you were lucky, you became a star and you made lots of money. And I have always had that somewhere in my head, in my being. I work doing what I love, and I'm compensated for that. And the sky's the limit, essentially. Now, I would meet other people, for example, who are in real estate or they're in business and areas that I had no interest in. And they go, I love the deal. I love the art of the deal. When I strike a deal and I negotiate and I win, that's energy for me. I feel wonderful, and if I do a win-win with people, I just feel incredible. Well, I never felt that. I was never like, oh, I have to negotiate. Because I was like, my agent sends me on an audition. I audition, I get the part. They put me in the role. If the movie comes out and it makes a success, it's great. In other words, my way of thinking about money was it comes from what I do and because of what I love, and it will be there. But it wasn't that I was actively pursuing money ever.
Right.
I was pursuing the artistic expression.
Activity.
And it was becoming where other people are like, I love the art of the deal. I love this. I love that. I love making money. I love, and so, there's different mindsets. So my mindset wasn't like, I could care less about money. I want it, but what I want was the satisfaction from doing something else.
Exactly.
But there are those people who go, no, I just want money. Now that could both be a blessing or a curse, because if you're chasing money, it's like the old saying, money should chase you. You shouldn't chase money. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, if you don't care about money, you may never have any money. So what kind of mindset stuff can people use to think about money in a way that's healthy for them? Like what you were just saying, it contributes to the overall well-being of everybody. So if they felt like, well, I'm taking money from somebody, you just dispelled that myth. You're actually contributing to the wealth of other people. So
another way to think about it is thinking of money as an energy, a form of energy, a medium of exchange. And it's so true. You want, in your example, you wanted to pursue your artistic activity, and that's great. Well, maybe you don't like lining up the auditions and negotiating the deals and all that. And that's why you're happy to find a good agent to work on your behalf and handle that for you, right? And they have a vested interest in your success.
Well, they have a vested interest because they only make money when you make money. So
exactly.
And you want that to be the case because you want them to be hungry so that they do the work. Yeah, absolutely.
You want alignment. You want to be in alignment, right? Your goals and objectives. Absolutely. Right. But that's a great example. Being in business and doing business activities, it's definitely a team sport. And so it's so important to surround yourself with the right people. In your case, it's an agent, right? The example I used earlier, it's your CPA, your accountant, which, you need one too. Everyone does, because they're not there just to prepare your tax returns for you every year. They're there as a mentor and a guide to help you with making decisions and strategic topics as well. And so it's important to surround yourself with the right people that you trust. You trust their expertise. You can learn from them, and you have a mutually beneficial relationship because they're vested in your success just as much as you are.
That was great. I appreciate that. So I'm going to stay on mindset, but change the parameters. There are some people who have plenty of money and they're worried about losing it. Or there are other people who have money, but they have high debt and they're trying to get out from under it. How fruitful is it for the person to worry about the debt or worry about losing it versus figuring out a way to stay wealthy in spite of having to pay off stuff or stay,
Debt. Yeah, debt is a topic that we can go in many directions on, right? Uh,
Could you give an
it's
example of good debt versus bad debt kind of stuff?
Sure, absolutely.
I know.
So, good debt versus bad debt. When you take on debt to buy tools, to invest in your business, maybe you take on business debt to hire your first employee. And as a result of that, your revenue increases such that it covers the cost of the debt service, right? The payback of that debt. That's good debt, right? Whether you're buying tools, inventory, um, services that you use to build your business, hiring a person to help you with sales, help you with admin, whatever that is, so that frees up your time to do your best activity that you do. And the key thing is that there's going to be an increase in revenue that is more than enough to pay back the debt on that schedule. That it has to be structured in a thoughtful way, of course. So those are all examples of good debt. If you take on debt, if you are going to college, you want to go to college, you want to take on student debt, well, have you thought about what is the career path you want to go to? And are you working towards one that you're going to be having the highest chances of success for finding a well-paying job that will allow you to earn good money, good income, and pay back those loans? That's a way to think about debt for student loans, student debt, which is, I think, becoming a big problem. It's a bubble because a lot of people took on a lot of debt without thinking about how it's going to get paid back.
Well, and or they chose a career or a major that has little chance of ever making money at it. I mean, so many people don't work in their chosen fields, that kind of thing. So yeah, those are good points.
So bad debt, Rex. Let me just say one more thing. Bad debt is running up credit card debt, consumer debt, to buy things that are doodads, that are shoes that sit in your closet, that are knickknacks that after a year it ends up on your curb at the garbage, or collecting dust in your basement.
Can I ask you a question related to that?
Yes.
So now credit card companies come back and go, hey, you're going to get 5% on this for a year, or 4% on that, or 2% of this, and then it'll be 1% on that, to encourage you to spend. So let's say I go out and I buy groceries. And I go, okay, well, I'm spending $1 on the groceries, but I'm going to get 1% back. So actually, I'm getting a little bit money. If I just paid cash, I won't get that percentage back. But what is the more sane thing to do? Use the credit card to buy perishables, or use cash to buy perishables? You know what I mean? Because
absolutely. That's a great question. So it takes discipline to do this, and it's totally good if you are into points and doing all that. Great. People can get that's a hobby that I know a lot of people love, is maximizing credit card points and the deals and offers. So if you do that, as long as you pay off the whole balance every month, which requires discipline and planning, then you're okay. But if you start carrying a balance, well, the credit card company's now dinging 22% interest rate after your intro rate expires, and now it starts to become really an uphill battle. And so if you're purposeful about it and you know you can pay off the full amount each month, great. I say go for it.
Right.
There are so many people online that teach the credit card strategies and the points deals, experts at that. And you can get a lot of perks and stuff. And that's all great as long as you know that whatever you're spending, you have to pay each month.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question, not just because it occurred to me. I had a credit card offer me another credit card. Like, oh, you can double your points back.
Mm-hmm.
So I just changed credit cards. And I didn't, and you had a date to look at. I didn't look at it, but I always wondered about it. And that was, why are they wanting me to change my credit card to get double the points back? I mean, are they really doing me a solid, or are they going to tell me that instead of paying 22% a month, I'm going to pay 40%? You know what I mean? In other words, I'm like going, there must be a hook to this, or they wouldn't be doing it.
The hook is,
or I should say catch.
Yeah, the catch. The catch is they may be relying on a lot of people that are going to carry a balance. That's it.
No.
I live in the Philadelphia area. I drive down to Delaware, the next state over, where all the credit card companies are.
Okay.
And you see these huge, right along the highway, the huge buildings, Chase and Citibank and all those, right? All the credit card companies are based there because of the financial laws and everything, but they're banking on the fact that a lot of people are going to run up their balance to the limit of the credit card and then pay the minimum amount each month, which is the worst thing you could possibly do. Then you get stuck. That's how you get trapped. That's what leads to people defaulting on their credit cards and having to declare bankruptcy and all of these things. It's so credit is good. It has a lot of benefits. It's leverage. However, be responsible with it and have a plan for how you're going to pay any debt you take on. Have a plan for how you're going to pay it back. But if your plan is, hey, I'm going to max out this card and then pay the minimum amount each month, well, guess what? The credit card companies are more than happy to let you do that. And when they want you to switch from one to another, that's why.
So another question, because when you mentioned Delaware, so I'm in California, I'm in Wisconsin, I'm in Texas, I'm in Philadelphia. Should I, if I decide I want to incorporate my business, should I incorporate in Delaware like the credit card companies do? Because I mean, I've heard, good things about incorporating elsewhere as opposed to like in some states, it's not that good.
Yeah, this is a very nuanced question. I would not recommend that. And this is definitely a topic to discuss with your advisors, your accountant, your attorney. That can get very complex. You hear and see online gurus teaching about, hey, open up an entity in Wyoming or Utah or wherever. Well, guess what? They have a business that facilitates that for you that they're pitching, right? So think about, there can be a lot of unintended consequences when you do an entity not where you're located. And sometimes it makes sense to do it, but many times it does not. And for each person, it depends on what business you're in and where you are, what state you're in. So definitely, your accountant, your CPA that's doing your tax returns every year, they're going to help you with a strategy on what makes the most sense for you.
Well, this is what I appreciate and like you so much because, going back to the kind of disclaimer that we made, you can see a beautiful fruit, pick it up and eat it, and it can be poisonous. Just because it's shiny, just because somebody's making an offer or a suggestion, doesn't mean you shouldn't do your due diligence to see whether or not what they're offering or what's being presented is worthwhile. And what you just said right there and throughout our talk today, is check it out, make sure that you're doing things, get advice, go to wise counsel, as opposed to just, oh, well, they said it on the internet, so I'm going to go do this.
Yeah. I feel like the tax experts that I follow, that I talk to, they all laugh about this, and they say, yeah, they make a lot of money unwinding bad decisions that people made that didn't serve them. They opened an entity in a different state, and they have their business in one state, but opened an entity in a different state where there's no justifiable reason to do so. And so the that usually gets frowned upon by any government authority that's looking at it. They're going to question why was this done, and you better have an answer, right? You better have a good answer about justify why. If you opened up an entity in a different state, but you have an office there, you have a physical presence, there's business activity, there's a whole different story now, right? Yeah. So that's a very individual situation that needs to be analyzed and evaluated.
Well, I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, isn't it true that if in the United States, technically, if I work in New York or in Chicago or in California or in Texas, I pay the state taxes of where I reside, regardless of where I made the income.
Right. Correct. And if you made the income in a different state, you may or may not have to pay taxes in that state as well. Depends on, right? It depends on what kind of interstate arrangements there are. And a lot of it can be complex. Yeah, definitely not something to figure out on your own. That's for sure. You and I have better things to do with our time and our focus than
I'm busy. I'm busy pursuing an acting career and letting my agent handle all the deals. Well, I'm kidding. We have about maybe 10 minutes left on the outside, and I want to make sure that you talk about what you would like to talk about. If I haven't asked a question or we haven't gotten there too, is there anything you really want people to know? And by the way, I know you have a gift, something. So why don't we talk about that for a second, and I'll show the.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a free special report that is about investing in alternative investments, and to learn a little bit more about what that is. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of investors, that they feel like, I invest in my 401k at work, and there was about a half dozen or 10 options in there, and I invested across all those things. So I feel like I'm diversified. But guess what? You're really not, because it's all in the stock market, 100%. Stock market's good, but don't let that be the only thing you're investing in. So I like to teach about alternative investments, things like real estate and investing in mortgage notes. It's about owning assets and building assets that they can generate income for you. And so I have a special report, if you go to giftfromfred.com, that happy to send to you. And also you have an option to sign up for my newsletter about investing that I write about once a month or so about different topics, and something I really enjoy. But it's a way for me to give back and share with others. So thank you. Appreciate you asking about that, Rex. Thank you.
And they go to giftfromfred.com, which is scrolling below.
Yes.
And, awesome. So
I like how you have the scrolling banner on that. Yeah.
Indeed. And so very cool. And in our remaining about 5 minutes, is there an area that you'd like to mention in the last couple of minutes that we have? I mean,
I would say I would say this. This goes back to mindset. Um, I love pursuing creative activities, and the reason why is that it allows you to refocus your mind on on a different area, and it doesn't matter what creative activity it is, right? I work with investments. It's what I do all day long. But what about doing something that's fun that takes your mind off of that? Whether it's creating art, painting and drawing, or playing a musical instrument, or creative writing for the fun of it. Activities like this relieve stress and gives you an opportunity to be creative and exercise the creative part of your brain. And this can be really powerful because it I feel like it creates space for problems to get solved, whether it's in your business or in your professional life. And it's an area to focus on. Like, what do you do for fun? What do you do that's creative? And you don't have to make money at it. You do it because you enjoy it. Um, and so, like I said, my father was a very talented painter. He never worked as a painter, but he loved doing that. He worked as an engineer his whole life, but he always did his artwork, drawing and sketching and everything. And I do the same with music. I love music. I would never want to earn a living as a musician, but I love music for fun, for enjoyment, for no matter how bad of a day I've had, I can go and pick up my instrument, practice, play some tunes, and gets my mind off of all the problems of the day. And what's really cool is your subconscious mind may go back and focus on those other things, and you solve some problems there while you're not even focused on that. And so I always love talking about that. Like, have a creative outlet, whatever it is in your life that you can focus some time on. Gives you a chance to recharge and remove stress in a very productive way. So much more productive than other ways that people may choose to relieve stress, right?
No, well, it's such an important point because especially we're talking about finances, and one of the biggest stressors in our life is our money issues that we discuss with our spouse or significant other or life partner,
Yeah.
with family members. So I mean, it's so much revolves around it, and as times change, they get harder, or that kind of thing. The stress increases for most people, and so to have an outlet like you just suggested not only de-stresses you, but as you so wonderfully pointed out, oftentimes when you're doing something you love, then the rest of the answers, the subconscious mind can solve the problems that you have instead of trying to focus on them constantly and never having any relief. So you bring up a really important practice that people should embrace.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And one more thing, you mentioned this earlier, right? Someone that may be facing debt or financial issues, like, have a plan, ask for help, get help from professionals, have a plan. Instead of feeling hopeless because you have a ton of debt, what if you have a plan? What if you're paying a small amount every month off on that debt? You're making incremental progress, and that builds momentum over time, and it helps clear your headspace from that. Because it's not going to go away tomorrow, but you're on the way, you're on the path. And that's important because over time, the consistent activity builds momentum, and get you closer and closer to where you want to be. And so, yeah, definitely a lot of people struggle with debt and getting out of debt, but there's a lot of great strategies too. So pick a plan that works for you and put it into practice. Take the first step. Maybe the first step is making a phone call to an expert and talking to them to get started. So don't feel helpless, feel empowered that, hey, today I took the first step and did this thing.
Oh, God, that's beautiful. It really is, because it is so necessary for each of us to understand that with each step forward, we get a little closer to what it is that we want and a little further away from what we don't want.
Yeah.
That's really, really powerful. Thank you, Fred Moskowitz. I appreciate you, a friend.
Thank you, Rex.
And your expertise in what you do. Again, this has been for informational, educational purposes. So anything that we've suggested, go ahead and do your research on it. Just don't jump in, blindly, know what you're getting into, and do that with other guidance. But Fred, you're marvelous. I love you. I see you. We see each other frequently in different places, and it's always good to have you around, and it's great to have you here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Rex. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you having me on today, and we always have such wonderful conversations. So I've been really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. I'll talk to you in just a few minutes, and thank you so much for being here. And everybody, go giftfromfred.com. And by the way, if you're watching the show, share the show. You can like the show in replay. You can comment. You can even ask questions at the replay. But go ahead and share it. And when you go to share the show, also subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you're notified of other shows. But we'll see you later, Fred. And thank you again.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for being here. And as I said, go subscribe. Go do all those kinds of things. All around it is, wherever it is at YouTube. But here's the thing. I also want to tell you that, you see the book behind me, Life on Your Terms. I wrote that to be a blueprint to get you from where you are or where you don't want to be to where you want to be. And it's actually a blueprint with easy to digest little bits and pieces and steps that get you there faster, swifter, and more delightfully than you might otherwise do. Some people will say, oh, you got to take massive action. You got to beat yourself up. You just got to constantly work harder and stress yourself out in order to change. And yes, you could do that, or you could find an easier way, a more enjoyable way, a more delightful way, and a way that moves you there faster than, trying to take massive action. Because when you take massive action, you only need to do that sometimes. Like when your car gets stuck in the mud, you might need to take a little extra effort to get it out of the mud. But once it's out of the mud, you don't have to keep taking massive action. So it's about being smarter and wiser and not just following, blindly the suggestions or the advice of, people out there or other books or other practices. So Life on Your Terms is a blueprint with steps that you can take to make your life the kind of life you want, to live life on your terms and create the life you want, so that you can enjoy more of life and more free time, more leisure, more love, more wealth, more health, and more happiness. And what I have is also a bonus for you. And that is, if you get my book from Amazon, I will gift you a $497 online video training on mastery, on how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your behaviors, to be able to get the kind of results that you want to get, again, quickly and easily, effortlessly, and more automatically than you might think possible. So go to get the book from Amazon, but go to rexsikes.com/book that you see scrolling, and it'll give you all the details of how you not only get the book, but then get the free bonus, $497 bonus that I'm giving to you free. For getting the book and helping you to transform your life in positive ways. So with that, I'm Rex Sikes. And as I always say, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So the best thing to do is maintain a positive mindset about it and learn to celebrate and be grateful for everything, and transform all of your moments in magical, miraculous, magnificent, and memorable ways. And with that, I'll see you the next time. You've been watching Create Your Best Life with Rex. And I'll see you next time on Create Your Best Life with Rex, or I'll see you on my other show, Rex Sikes Movie Beat. So enjoy.